In this episode of Honesty Talk, we have a lovely guest, Sister Mayameen Meftahi, who runs an organization called She Can Consultancy. And I'm going to allow Mayameen to speak about briefly what she does. And She Can Consultancy was born from a very testing personal story. So would you like to share with the viewers? Well, first of all, thank you for being on Honesty Talk.
Thank you.
But please do share with the viewers a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your story. And then we're going to talk about life after what you've been through.
So She Can Consultancy was, like you say, it was born from a backstory, but the backstory was a kind of late in coming out. So many people had already known that I was working within the sexual violence field, and in particular with trafficking and female genital mutilation. But it was only actually in 2018, that literally 1 year ago today, that I spoke out. So that was that I waived my own anonymity as a child sexual abuse survivor. My backstory from that was at the hands of my father. So I'd actually kept my father in my life after what I believed had been the abuse. It's very common in that sense that, you know, you kind of get a bit blurred with the lines. So I continued on with my life, alhamdulillah. And then in 2011, whilst I was on holiday with my first child, he was not long born, a couple of years old, and my husband, we went to Tunisia, which is where my husband is from. Whilst on holiday, I got a phone call from the police to say that my father had been arrested. So now my father had been in my life, was there in the scenes, continuing on. So that was an absolute huge shock for me, and it was just an absolute turmoil time of my life, because at that point when the police phoned me and said they had arrested my father, and they said that I was now safe, you know, and it was like, well, hey, I'm in my 20s, I've got a husband, I'm married, I've got a child, you're just way too late on the scenes. But, you know, alhamdulillah, I returned back to the UK and the story unfolded really, and that's when I had to tell my husband of my child sexual abuse.
So he had
no idea. That was just his father-in-law.
Was anyone aware at that point that you had gone through this?
No, because of the anonymity.
No, this was because I never told anybody. I never spoke out. I didn't think I'd be believed, and all the you know, the same things that come with everybody. And so what happened was, at the point at that time, it was extremely confusing for me, because I couldn't understand how his arrest had happened. I couldn't understand. I didn't speak out. I didn't report him. So how was this all come back? It was, you know, it was a deep, long backstory. But to cut it slightly short, you know, a family member had got a little bit suspicious of his behaviour and the way that he was, and so they was actually on holiday. My father and my mother at the same time. My husband and I were on holiday, and there were some videos found of my child abuse. So what happened when the police contacted me and they said, we don't need you.
Because we've got all the evidence.
They were like, we've got everything we need. And I was like, so what do you know, this was like, what are you doing to me? Why are you turning my life upside down, you know, for what? You know, at that time, you know, you can't see the hikmah in it. You can't see why Allah has exposed all of this and opened all these doors. At that point of time, you're just thinking, why are you doing this to me now? So
were you Muslim by that point?
No.
Had you reverted? Okay,
No.
so Islam came after that.
yeah.
Okay, so you're in this situation where you'd kept it to yourself, and then the police contact you, and then you now need to speak to your husband, and it's something that you have to face. Whereas I'm assuming that you buried it, you kind of brushed it under the carpet. It's something that happened. You're in a good place now. So where did Islam come into this? How did you become Muslim? When after that? And very briefly, what kind of happened after you became Muslim?
Yeah, so, you know, obviously what happened was my father was sentenced to prison in 2012. So he was arrested in 2011. He was Romanian bail, but obviously, you know, the court cases go on for a very long time, and it went on for about a year of unraveling evidence, and so much that I had to learn about this man that I didn't know.
Oh.
So, you know, there were things like, you know, he'd been in prison in 1978 before I was even born.
Oh, wow.
For rape. And
Wow.
so there was lots. And for me, at that point, when I'd kind of covered this abuse, it was more the sense it was a childhood abuse, you know, growing up. and that I dealt with it. I was moving on from it. I was taking back control. But unfortunately, what I found was that he had turned to drugs. So he was date raping. Which is what he was sentenced for as well. So he was sentenced to 10 years in prison in 2012. And alhamdulillah, my husband was extremely supportive. There was no question of a doubt that he was not going to stand by my side. But what then happened was, 2012, he was sentenced to 10 years. And in 2013, I converted to Islam. That was a huge struggle for me, because obviously when we were going through the court case, we were going through the trials, we were going through me trying to understand, how has this all happened, and why didn't I know, and why couldn't I have protected myself, and why couldn't I have stopped this, and why couldn't I have had the voice? So, and at the whole time, my husband was turning to Islam. He was turning to prayer. That was his coping mechanism.
SubhanAllah.
My coping mechanism was just, I hate everything and I hate everybody, and I've lost all my power. And more so because I hadn't reported him. Obviously, at the time, I didn't know that he was date raping. I didn't know all of the stuff. I didn't know there was evidence. I didn't know that the job was done for me. But in hindsight, when you're in that moment of time, you're just like, why couldn't I have done that?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of anger, and there was a lot of frustration, and there was just a lot of, why are you turning to God and praying when God never saved me?
You ended up becoming Muslim.
But it was that God never saved me. I don't want to know about God. And
That
then
must have been...
there was turmoil.
So kind of fast forwarding, so you become Muslim, you embrace Islam.
2013.
MashaAllah. So your father's already been imprisoned. Yeah. So you became Muslim after he was imprisoned. So it was 1 year after he was imprisoned that you became Muslim? Okay, so that's quite still fresh, right? So where were you at? I guess so we're talking about life after abuse, yeah? So what space were you at, and what has the journey been like in the last, 6 years since you became Muslim, or 7 years since he was imprisoned? What has life been like as a survivor? I don't want to call you a victim of it, because I believe you're a survivor. You've gone on, mashallah, may Allah reward you, to set up your own consultancy. You're a figure of support and comfort for many women who have gone through the same trial that you have. I call you a survivor, and for you to come on to Honesty Talk and talk about this is amazing. May Allah reward you. Ameen. So we really want to talk about life after abuse. So let's bring it, Mayameen.
Well, obviously the story is that, I did convert to Islam, alhamdulillah, in 2013. And then I continued to go about my work and do what I want to do. So I had the secret fighting force. So bearing in mind that, I didn't waive my anonymity until last year, so just literally 12, 13 months ago. So I turned to Islam, and alhamdulillah, I converted. And then what I did was I worked within sexual violence on a different level. So like trafficking, I think people will probably know me more about the female genital mutilation that I used to talk about, and I used to activist for and stuff. So what happened was, there was a lot of, well, why is she so passionate? Where is her passion coming from? Why is she so interested in stuff? She hasn't been through anything. Like, what's this thing? And obviously there was never any, hints to my backstory. So alhamdulillah, life went on. And at that point of time, what it was like an identity crisis. So I was trying to find myself, And I know we go through that as converts anyway, but this was a lot sort of deeper in the sense of, I don't want to be that child that he created. And I don't want to be that woman that I thought I'd gained control of and he took away from me, Sorry.
That's okay.
When you find out that something you believed had stopped and it hadn't stopped, you lose that sense of power. So at that point of time, it was like, who am I? And who do I want to be? And so, being a convert, all this name change comes about, and all this whack on the hijab and be somebody new. So when you have that abuse behind you, and you have that silence behind you, it's like, okay, I'm going to be a completely different person.
And Islam is almost like an opportunity.
That's it. I can be something completely new. And so alhamdulillah, and that's just how life continued. And obviously I went through that spiritual journey and the ups and downs of spiritual journeys. But it was obviously the point of when I got the phone call in 2018. So it was in March 2018, and the police phoned me. I love the police phone calls. You just cannot beat them. Like every time it's like, Go on. Are you sitting down, Mayameen? I'm sitting down. So, I got this other phone call and it was, Mayameen, we're going to release your father early. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
So, and they'd been leading up to this because he was due by law to go up for parole in 2015, 16 and 17. And he was refused all paroles. But obviously he'd served over half his sentence. So by law, they were releasing him to see whether he could serve his continuing sentence in the community. So that was just like this another smack in the face. It's like, I've come so far in these 4 years, 5 years of converting to Islam and finding my path and trying to heal myself and
through the
spiritually heal through Islam, get answers, and support my family and, just try to rebuild everything and create this new identity. And then all of a sudden they would turn around and saying to me, that's it, he's coming out. So what are you going to do?
What's the aftermath of that?
Yeah.
Like,
Do you know what, Linka? At the time, it was just, who is going to protect me? And I was fluctuating in Dean anyway, with everything, knowing that he was coming, knowing that the time was coming up, knowing, we put so much pressure on ourselves as Muslim women as well. And then in the back of my head, I'm thinking, and I've got this status as a Muslim woman and nobody knows what I've been through. And I'm also fully aware of the shame and the stigma that comes in the Islam community when it comes to talking about these subjects. And now I'm about to be this other person to sisters I've supported. So women I've worked with, they don't know about my story.
It's really coming out, isn't it?
Like, are they going to trust me? Are they going to think, well, you've been preaching to us, but look what you've been, hiding? And then also professionally, you're going from a professional to service user.
right.
Wow.
Because I'm under victim support, and I had been under victim support, and now upon his release, I'm even more under victim support because obviously for the first 9 months of his release, he's under licensing conditions. So, if he takes a step wrong, he's back in. But at the same time, they've got to make sure that I and my family are protected. So it was like these drop of levels.
So many transitions, going from having lived your life, with that as just your past to, now being faced with it when he was arrested, to becoming Muslim and the transition that is, and then him being released early and go, like you said, professionally, going from a facilitator and a person of support to now under victim support. So many different transitions in a very, very short space of time. So so how did you feel about that?
Do you know what? The funniest thing is it became a time of an identity crisis again. So at the time when they advised me that he was being released, the first thing I said to him was, how are you going to protect me? And more so now, how are you going to protect the 3 children that I have? When he was arrested, I had 1, and that was hard enough. So obviously they were just like, well, we're going to do this, we're going to put this into place. But the breaking or the speaking out came because I thought, well, actually, you can't protect me and you can't protect my children. And what they hadn't told me was that when they'd released him on licensing condition, they'd protected Wales, which is why I was living in Wales. But they were saying that after 9 months, he was free to do as he pleased. So now this is a man that's gone from 1978. I was born in 1983 and was, high-profile sex offender, being released into the community within 9 months of, well, if he's a good boy, then alhamdulillah, he can just move on with his life. And I was like, that's not good enough for me, So it came about that I just literally, in that split second, I'm going to speak out. And I never considered the thought had never even come into my mind to speak out. Because once again, I was living an identity that nobody could know about. Right? Yeah. Nobody could know about this backstory. It would affect me professionally. Nobody would trust me. I would be the shame, the stigma. It came with all the grooming process as a child was, you just do not. And it was a really hard time because at the time, I wanted to speak out. So the journalist got in contact with me. And we'd gone through, and now this, I'd never spoken about this story ever. So even when they first contacted me, they were like, we're not getting anything from you. You need to tell us, you need to open up. Well, I couldn't because it's nothing I've never opened up to about. So we worked for 9 months just trying to speak so they could have a piece of article, right?
Whoa.
I had to heal and I had to release stuff that I've never spoken about. And in the end, I had to write it to release it to them. And they were like, that's still not good enough. We need your voice. So we went through 9 to 10 months of every day going the story, doing the story, doing the story. And then it came to a point where at the photo shoot time. Well, I hadn't told them I was Muslim.
Right. So they didn't know?
Wow.
They didn't know I was a Muslim. And my name could have come from anywhere because I'd had anonymity. So, you know, I was protected. I changed my name for, you know, because of what had happened, etc. So all of a sudden they asked me during the photo to really get ready for the photo shoot in London. And they said, you know, what clothes style and da-da-da. And then I thought to myself, well, I wear hijab. So I actually said, I need scarves. Well, that was it then.
What happened?
What happened?
They were like, no, you can't wear a scarf.
Oh.
Because if you wear a scarf, you will not appeal to those we're trying to target.
Wait, who are they trying to target?
Exactly. I would not be seen as the girl next door if I wore a scarf.
A foreign child with a foreign story.
Oh my gosh.
So it was absolute turmoil in my life because I was challenging my identity crisis. My father was about to be released from prison. I didn't know who I was again. Yeah. My name was Mayameen, but my birth name was Kelly, and the story was coming out as Kelly. You know, who am I, right? And at the same time, I'm being told we can't run the story. So I sat there and I was like, well, I'm not coming to the photo shoot. I'm coming to, can't you wear a wig? Is it about your hair? What's it about? And I was like, I'm a Muslim. It's about my religion. It's about my identity. And actually, covering had been so powerful for me because I changed how I was, how I looked. They would not run the story. So I had to, it was one of those, I needed this story to go out. I'd worked nine months on this story. And so it just so happened that I had a breakdown with faith, with religion, with identity. And I went to the photo shoot and I took off my hijab for the photo shoot because I thought, well, you know, alhamdulillah, I'm a convert and I've been through this and that. So, and I left the photo shoot and I put my hijab back on and I thought, wow, you know, you've just sacrificed for the photo shoot. So it was like, just take it off. And then I was coming home on the train and I was sitting there.
You mean take it off permanently?
Yeah. I was sitting on the train and thinking, what a hypocrite you are, you know? And the story's about to go out, or my Muslim community about to find out who you are, and you've taken off your hijab, you know?
Cascade just...
It's like, and the shaitan just took over because it was like, who are you? You know, what have you done to do this? And then I was like, God, and all the shame's going to come from the Muslim community. They're going to hate me. They're going to, oh my God, I'm an abuse survivor, and there's so much stigma around that. And these sisters are not going to, you know, want to speak to me anymore. You know, all that normal stigma connected stuff. And then on top, I've just done this thing that's like,
and you see,
who I am.
You know, I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking, people who don't know this story or who didn't know this story at that time, they'll see, oh, you know, Mayameen, she took off her hijab. She's just stopped practicing. She's just gone to that side, not knowing. And this is a lesson. This is a big lesson. I mean, we've
never
spoken
know
about this.
people's stories.
You don't know the stories. All you're doing is you're entering that chapter. You're only seeing that chapter at that time, but you don't know the previous chapters that have come. And so I'm so glad that you have spoken about this, because we may come across sisters who appear to have taken a step back in their deen, and we're so judgmental about that. But we don't know the full story around it. And you can't, there's an Arabic proverb that I shared recently, do not mock, I think paraphrasing, do not mock a pain that you haven't been through, you know? So what was the actual reality?
That's the interesting thing, because I removed my hijab before my story was released.
Okay.
So obviously I had all that judgment, the judgment of, you've taken a step back, she's gone off the deen, don't know what's going on, and all this stuff was going on. And then Bush, my magazine article went out, and everyone just went, oh, you know? And it was really interesting because I was so terrified of my community's response that I took off my hijab to be the other side of my community, to fit in with the white girl down the road, to fit in with the neighbour, because I had this impression that my Muslim community were going to turn my back on me anyway, you know, because of my story alone, let alone the extra taking off the hijab and the falling down and everything. So just give up and let it all go. But subhanAllah, what happened was when the story went out, and I did that Facebook video that I'd never done before, and it reached 13,000 viewers, the inbox was flooded. My inbox was flooded. And ironically, it wasn't flooded with the girl down the road neighbour that I was apparently trying to target. It was, I had 22 disclosures. and 19 of them were Muslim women.
I just had shivers up my spine. You never know what a situation or an experience can lead to. I mean, here from the outsider's
You see
perspective,
what I was thinking and what was actually going on?
Right, but you had to go through that series of events, okay, which, like I said, to the outsider can appear to be taking a step backwards, right? But that had to happen, okay, in order for these women, these Muslim women, to disclose their abuse to you.
Say that
Subhanallah.
sometimes supposed stepping back is the very thing to move forward. You know, in order for you to, subhanallah, get to the place that you are at now, you had to take that step.
Yeah.
And it's just a lesson.
And subhanAllah, how you were saying about every time you feel like you've healed, it crops back up in a different form and it chases you. And now it's been it's been bust wide open, and you come around like so in a wholesome, more full way. And the lessons, it's
And when
immaculate,
it's
know?
funny to me what you say is because when you just think, why Allah, why are you testing me again? And then you see the 22 disclosures come through my inbox,
And you realise,
and it's like, this is Muslim women.
right.
SubhanAllah, this was not the girl down the road that I was meant to be targeting.
Did you get many?
A few, not as many.
Oh, so the majority were Muslim.
Majority were Muslim
SubhanAllah.
women. So obviously that's where then I sat back, and for that year that I was fluctuating in Deen, the year that it took me to speak out on my story, I'd moved away from working with my community, and people had noticed that as well. They noticed that I wasn't public speaking anymore about Islam. I wasn't doing much in the work of the sexual violence work on the FGM anymore. So people were starting to see. So in that space of the year when I was going through this crisis, I did start to work with outside of my Muslim community because I was preparing myself mentally to no longer work in that community anymore.
Backlash.
So subhanAllah, when it came in, I sat back and I thought, my community need me, my Muslim community need me just as much.
Shivers up my spine. Shivers up my spine. Honestly.
Can't escape, subhanAllah, alhamdulillah.
You had a plan, but Allah has His plan.
And every time I think my plan,
This much is a cry.
right? And every time I thought I had it written and I had it sorted and I had my mindset ready to take these challenges, I'd removed my hijab, I was strong, I was, no one can come at me, no one can judge me, no one can pull me down.
Remove myself from it all.
I'm detached.
Right.
And then
Allah's mercy, man.
it touched me and I'm like, subhanAllah. And I was like that, subhanAllah. Why? Why does this keep happening to me?
And he's like, let me show you why. Let me show
I'm getting
you why.
This way.
And so it's continued from there, and this is what, I was saying to others that, people might see that I'm not that activist at the moment. When obviously my story came out, yes, I was very high. Yes, it was all abuse. And, when petitions were going in and everything. But you know what? I've taken a slight step back because now my Muslim community need me and they don't need me as an activist. They need me as a sister in Islam who they can connect to, a sister of fire, a sister who can turn around and say, do you know what? It's okay. It's okay that you've removed your hijab because you don't know who you are anymore. And it's okay that, so-and-so has abused you and violated you, and that's okay. And it's okay that you may not at the moment have that full faith in Allah. That's okay. And as an activist, you can't give that. You can't give that healing love that people are crying for.
And also the fact that you came back. I think that sends a beautiful message. Subhanallah, Mayameen, listening to this, what comes up for me is that, you had your plan and Allah had His plan. And He knew, even before you were created, that you would have to, experience the crumbling of your deen, right? You would have to take that step back. You would have to go through that journey, find Him again, and become the person that Muslim women would seek support from, because you understand it all. You've been there throughout the entire thing. So it's almost like all of it, every single part of the journey was meant to be. It was written because your work was not done. Because everything that you went through, from being abused to finding out, to your father being released, to having the courage and the guts to speak about it, to finding Allah again, all of that package is exactly what a Muslim woman would need to hear, would need to be able to resonate with and relate to.
That's necessary in order to do that.
Yes, subhanallah.
Yeah. And it's beautiful that how, just like you said, at that stage, it was right for you to be in activism. And now, true to what you feel like now you're in a place where you want to support. And so you're going with what feels like your mission and passion at this time.
Absolutely.
And that's true to you.
Absolutely. Kind of, we're about to wrap up the episode. There are going to be viewers who are at different stages of the journey. Some that have been abused, and perhaps like where you were at when you had your first child, it was the past. They just brushed it under the carpet. They may not have told anyone. They may have told people. They may have been shunned by the Muslim community. They may be in a position where they're losing their faith in Allah and their practice of the deen. Wherever they're at, what advice would you give to a sister, but there are brothers that watch this. Any Muslim that watches this, or even non-Muslims, we have some non-Muslim viewers, anyone, but specifically Muslims, what would you advise them? What would be your kind of the takeaways, the best advice that you can give to them, having gone through life after abuse?
Do you know what? It seems so simple, but it's actually allow that fluctuation. Actually allow, if your faith is fluctuating, allow that. Because like you said, Allah plans and there is absolutely nothing you can do about it. And the more you fight against it, the more you do not heal. And the more you fight against it, the more you put shame on yourself. The more you feel guilty, the more you feel that there's something wrong with you. And so what you're doing is you're adding the levels of trauma over the top of you. Okay, you're adding the depression. You're adding everything because you're trying to be something that you are not.
Right now.
Yeah. And you're trying to find something that you have no idea that what it's about. You know, and I'm not here to tell people speak out. I'm here to say, be you, find you, heal inside, because if you can't heal inside, you're going to project it outwards. And the issue that we've got, especially Islamically, is that you've got, like I said before, you've got all of that extra baggage and then you've got the Islam on top of it. So, you know, I'm one of these people where if sister comes to me and says, I can't pray, okay, so what are we going to do about it? Where are we trying to go here? Because, you know, in that time of need, yes, go to Allah, but you can't comprehend the pain. That pain is so intense from trying to heal from the abuse, let alone the pain that you've got from the outside community. And the problem is you adding to that trauma. And for me, I had to really just allow myself to crumble, allow myself to not pray, allow myself to say, you know what, Allah, what is it that you want from me? And to allow myself that passion and that fight again to say, okay, I'm taking it like baby steps, step by step, step by step. You know, sisters would try to come and give me nasiha and be like, Mayameen, you've got to put that hijab back on and da-da-da. That doesn't work, you know. Yes, come to me and say to me, put the hijab on. But nobody actually asked me, why did you take it off? Nobody asked me that.
Lesson.
You see this, what I've shared with you today? Nobody knows why I took off my hijab.
Wow. So this is a
coming out of an
This is the coming out of why did I take off my hijab? So for those who have always sat back and gone, why did she take it off? Why did she put it? Is it just because she fluctuated? Is it just because she was having a bad point in her journey? This is why.
It's a shame that we don't have that disposition, that when a sister is slipping or whatever it may be, no one asks, what is going on?
We talk.
And if somebody had come to me, LaYinka, and said, Mayameen, why have you taken that? I said, this is why. I went through this, and this, and I don't know where I'm at anymore.
And the journey might have been different.
You know, I'd just like to say you are an incredibly inspiring, courageous sister. I'd like to shake your hand lovingly, mashallah, for coming on here, you know, and sharing not only your story, but life after your story and what you have been judged for, and just coming out with that. I think, you know, I'm sure I speak for all of us, Allah had a plan for you. He has a plan for you. And I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give you everything you need externally and internally to do your work, because it's needed in this community. Ameen to that. So this has been a very deep episode. It may be triggering for some of our viewers. We will share some of Mayameen's details about her consultancy. So if you have been triggered, please do speak to Mayameen or find a therapist. And we'd just like to thank Mayameen again, mashallah. Jazakallah khair. We look forward to speaking with you again at the next episode of Honesty Talk.
There is nothing inherently in our deen that says that someone shouldn't have money.
If there's an opportunity for me to earn, I will, embrace that.
So they may be worldly speaking, they're successful, and also they're people of faith.
If you have money, you don't have the right to keep it. You must give it all away to charity.
There has to be a substantial segment of society, because you think their 2.5% used to carry all the poor in that community.
You can't spend it on yourself, or you must feel guilty.
It's welcome to make dua for me.
I mean, for her money. and money for Aliyah.